Look, I began this morning, as I said, talking about Michael Wood. Another minister bites the dust. And the Prime Minister is again frustrated and distracted. And I'm sorry, while Labour and its paid trolls like Clint Smith want to keep talking about Teslas, and Agenda Lynch from Newshub wants to keep talking about Teslas. And while I have to say I looked at the Michael Wood story last night and thought the vast majority of New Zealanders wouldn't know Michael Wood from a bar of soap or what his portfolios were, losing minister is at this rate is more than careless. It shows a trend. And I thought we'd talk to a guy who knows a lot about the implosion of Labour governments, because he was part of one such implosion back in the 80s. Former Cabinet Minister, historian, columnist with Bassett, Brash Hyde. Michael Bassett joins us now. Michael, lovely to talk to you again. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks, Sean. You sound like you're in fine shape this morning.
I am indeed. There is much to talk about. Look, we're publishing a column, I think, today of yours, where you're talking about Labour in Struggle Street. This does kind of look like a government or administration in its death throes, doesn't it, Michael?
Well, yes, it does. It's been a fairly low-grade government anyway, all the way through, and it's never shown any deafness much. And the general overriding policy, as Mike Hosking points out this morning, being the Maorification of everything, will probably come back and bite them in the backside anyway. So, yes, it's a government that ought to be on the way out, and I trust that it is. Every now and again, even people who are strong Labour people have to face the fact that their beloved Labour Party needs a refresh, and a little bit of time in opposition is desirable.
In fact, Michael, it is the pendulum, the natural cycle of politics and party politics.
Yes. Helen Clark got 9 years, but Labour will have had 6, and a pretty unlovely 6.
Well, a very difficult and unusual 6 under quite strange circumstances. Look, I want to pick apart some of the issues that are contributing to what many would pick as the demise of Labour. I first want to talk about the Michael Wood issue, which is indicative of a somewhat lackadaisical approach to very old conventions about conflict of interest and declarations and basic honesty, Michael.
Well, yes, that's absolutely true. But the trouble really was that Michael Wood was never up to it. He's not got much of a background that would inspire confidence, and everything he's touched as a minister has crumbled in his hands. I mean, he remember all the millions, tens of millions that were spent on planning the walking and cycling bridge across the Waitemata? Well, that never really moved. And he's the only substantial defender of Auckland City to the airport light rail, on which, again, tens of millions of money, which could have been spent on teachers' salaries and other things, it's not going to fly. That's one of the good things that will come out of his departure, I think. Light rail has lost its last remaining champion.
All right, but we put him together with Stuart Nash, Jan Tinetti under a cloud. Mm-hmm. I'm still surprised that Kiri Allen and Nana Mahuta survive. And we got Meng Foon resigning for a conflict of interest. It just seems...
Another person who shouldn't have ever been appointed to that role. I mean, Meng Foon was not a bad mayor of Gisborne, but he doesn't read. I frankly think that he was appointed Race Relations Conciliator before he'd even read the treaty. The statements that have come out from him as race relations conciliator, frankly, were embarrassing, most of them.
Yeah. All right, but he is gone. So once again, this builds an overall picture of a government that doesn't get it.
Yes, I'm afraid so.
Michael, if there is to be, and you say this is part of the if you like, the ebb and flow of politics. So Labour, let's presume, paint a hypothetical, gets out of office or is elected, booted out of office come October. What sort of rebirth do they need then? Where is it that they've gone wrong, and how do they refocus a party, which is what parties do in opposition? They try and get their act together, as it were.
It's what they're meant to do. They didn't really do it between 2008 when they lost office and then 2017. One of the reasons for that, I think, is that Helen Clark, who was a very effective Prime Minister, nonetheless passed a most confused message to the Labour Party. On the one hand, she said to them, she kept all of the policies that she'd been a part of dealing with when she was a minister in the fourth Labour government. On the other hand, she told us that Rogernomics and what had gone on in the 80s was awful. And the end result was that the likes of Hipkins and Robertson and Jacinda and so on didn't really know which way was up when it came to Labour policy. And there's been no sort of campaign to retrain Labour people into dissecting what was good about their historical past and what needed to change. There was just confusion for that 8-9 years in opposition. Well, somebody, somewhere, is going to have to grab the party and start to say, now, come on, this is what's in the best Labour tradition, and let's go for it. But the difficulties there are that where are you going to get those people from to lead the party? Labour has frozen members of Parliament's salary, for instance, for 6 years. Where are the leaders with real ability who are going to go into politics when you're going to take a great big pay cut? It's not likely. And so I may be whistling in the wind. I may be hoping for a miracle where the barriers are such that it's not going to occur.
All right. Michael, despite, I think, the obvious evidence of some serious problems and, if you like, a decline in this administration, the departure of Jacinda Ardern, the loss of ministers, the failure of policies, the absence of a very strong policy platform or agenda, apart from, I'd say, suppressing free speech and being incredibly woke. To be honest, the polls do not reflect what we might perceive in politics.
That's a puzzle. There was one that was a bit old the other day that came out. I noticed there was a taxpayer.
Oh, that was a Labour one. That was a Labour one they held on for 2 weeks because they knew they were going to have to fire Wood.
Well, you think they sat on it for a while?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was just a joke the way they did that. It was a Labour poll.
Oh, well, you've got to say that the media have been doing their level best to help to save Labour. Audrey Young is in the Herald this morning trying to put a smiley face on Chippy, but it's rather sad. And Claire Trevitt, oh dear. It is probably true that that poll was stirring and kept to try and help Chippy. But I don't believe that poll that was released about 2 or 3 days ago. It's not what I'm picking up. I'm picking up the fact that National's fairly static, but ACT is roaring away. And moreover, there are some signs that some Labour people are beginning to go for ACT, which would scarcely be surprising given that ACT came out of Labour.
All right. So you think ACT can take votes off Labor? Because my observation would be, we look at the polls overall, Labor and National neck and neck and pretty unmoved at 36, 37% each. And it really comes down to who does, and the Greens and the Māori Party together combined have about the same amount of the vote as ACT, which is kind of almost a hung parliament, Michael.
Yes, well, on the basis of the poll that came out 2 or 3 days ago, yes. But as I said, it's an old poll, and it's been, as you pointed out, sat on for a period of time. And I think that there is a significant change taking place. I can only go by what I'm picking up, and I've got some pretty good connections around the traps. And there is movement going on politically, and it's not kind to the Labour Party.
Yeah, well, maybe they haven't been kind to us, Michael. That's the problem. Always a pleasure, my friend, talking to you. Have a great day, and thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
That is Michael Bassett, former Cabinet Minister, historian, writer, though he's banned by the Herald, never going to be published in the Herald again. And yeah, is something about to change? I think Wood is... He's not the last nail in the coffin, but he's another nail in the coffin. He was a senior guy, Wood. He was one of their stars. And he's now a backbencher. Don't feel too hard for Michael Wood. He's still bad for Michael Wood. That was a bit bad. He is still filling $185,000 a year or something for being a backbencher. It's not like his life is over. I wouldn't be shedding any tears. Sean, sad to say, Michael Wood's arrogant refusal to be compliant is a minor example of Labour's disgraceful failure to do the right thing by this country across all areas of government. Cheers, Steve. Thank you, Steve. Sean, Woods isn't considered trustworthy enough to be a cabinet minister, yet he is considered trustworthy enough to be a member of parliament. Isn't that an insult to honest MPs and, more importantly, us, the public? Well, that will be for the good people of Mount Roskill to decide. Okay, he holds the Mount Roskill seat. It's a safe Labour seat. Whether or not they're happy with his performance and his trustworthiness is up to them come election day. What do you get when you subject bread and butter to heat? Toast. Oh, I see what you did there. Very, very clever.